say a prayer and a grounding, but I look back and he was
I was ready. What you want me to do?
give us a grounding
Oh,
and get us
okay.
ready.
That's my favorite thing to do all
I
the
know
time.
it is.
My name is James Hine. I think I know all of you, and thank y'all so much for coming. If we would, just take a moment and just lower your gaze, close your eyes, take a deep breath, let it go. Breathe deep again. Feel your feet on the floor, connected to the earth, connected to each other, to other living things on this planet. This breath of life that's been flowing in and out of us from the moment we took our first breath. So often we don't even think about it, it's just happening. We don't think about what's happening in our country and around the world, and if we're not grounded and connected, we can become overwhelmed. And we need people to speak up and to share their truth in places of power so that those who make decisions can remember who they actually work for. Let's take one more deep breath. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I feel better every time I just breathe.
Okay, so hopefully everybody picked up one of these from the table when you walked in. If you didn't, I'll give you a second to go grab. Oh, James is going to be hospitable and grab you guys one. Thank you, James.
Yeah.
So this is just a little workbook. Most of everything that we're going to talk about today is in here. And there's some things that if you don't want to do them right now, because they might take a little thought, you can think on them, pray on them, sleep on them, and do them later. As we all know, public meetings are where decisions are made that, shape all of our daily lives, right? Whether you think about it or not, because usually we don't, right? You don't think about all these people in these rooms saying yes or no to the things that actually control your life, but it happens all the time, right? Environmental protection, schools, infrastructure, housing, all that good stuff, right? And a lot of times, unfortunately, we don't participate. For some people, it's because they feel intimidated. Some people don't understand the language or the processes that they go through. Some people honestly believe that their voice doesn't matter, unfortunately. And some people fear professional consequences from speaking out in these situations. And so this workbook and this workshop is designed to kind of change that and ease some of it if you find yourself in any of those categories. Because we find that democracy functions best when people feel prepared, when they know what's going on. So up here, I just want to point out, this is one of my absolute favorite pictures because everything, James told me earlier when we were getting ready for this, he said, you do too much. And it's all on my face right here in this picture. This is at the Senate Finance Committee hearing last special session when they were talking about changing the juvenile courts into the specialty courts and doing all that good stuff. And we weren't happy with that, and so we got up to provide public testimony about it. The two ladies sitting on the side of me actually work for the Louisiana Center for Children's Rights, and they provide no-cost legal defense services for juveniles. And so they work directly in that every day. I come from a background of criminal justice reform, and I'm a former paralegal, so I felt versed enough, and especially since Calcasieu, right, we have one of the only places that doesn't have a specialty juvenile court. I don't know if you guys ever seen, sometimes there's the sheriff's car sitting outside and there's a kid sitting in the back and they're out there for a long time. It's because they can't be in the same courtroom in the facility where the adults are if they're charged. It's very, very messy. And so they were doing some things that was going to make that a lot worse in a lot of other places. And so we wanted to speak out against that. And the senator here whose face I chose to cut off. Did not agree with us. But yeah, so just to show that I've been doing this for a long time now. I've testified in front, and I've given comments in front of the Public Service Commission, in front of the FCC, quite a few places, quite a few times for a lot of things, because I think it's really important that we use our voices to the best of our capability. I don't know where my mouse went, y'all. There we go.
Thank you for doing that.
Definitely. Whoa. All right. So just to give you a little rundown of what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about why public meetings matter, which we kind of just did that. We're going to talk about the Louisiana laws that govern public meetings. We're going to talk about Robert's Rules. How many of you are familiar with Robert's Rules? So a good portion. And then we're going to talk about written public comments, strong oral comments when you have to give testimony, or you have something to say, you just want to give your opinion. And then we're going to talk about some protections if you work in different sectors, things that you need to be aware of before you make public comments. And then we'll do some Q&A if you guys have any. We're also going to stop in between. Like I said, there's some little activities in here that we're going to do. So the core principle of Louisiana public meeting law is that it is essential to the maintenance of a democratic society that public business be performed in an open and public manner. Why? What does that mean?
No secrets.
No secrets, right? We pay taxes. We live here. We deserve to know what's going on. Decisions that are going to affect all the things that we use every day, where our money goes, all those types of things should not be made without us having input on that. And so that applies to every public body. And so can somebody give me some examples of what actually applies as a public body?
Police jury.
Police jury. What else?
City council.
Definitely city council.
Port board.
Yep. Port board, that's a good one. A lot of people don't realize that one. Yep. What else?
Library boards, I think.
Yes. What else?
Legislature?
Definitely legislature, right? And so we have the legal right to attend most of those meetings, and we're going to talk about why it says most in a minute. We have the right to view the notices for those and the agendas for those in advance. We have the right to observe deliberation. So when you talk about legislation, especially when they go into session, the committee hearings that a lot of times they're in the legislative session and they go on the floor to do their votes. They're all broken up into the little committees. And so it's those committees' jobs to deliberate and decide what's best, and then they make their recommendations to everybody else. And so when you go in those committee rooms, that's when you hear a lot of those deliberations and you see them really digging into the details of those bills, because let's be honest, everybody doesn't have time to read every page of every bill. It's just unrealistic for us to expect that, but that's why it's set up the way it is with those committees, right? We also have the right to provide public comment, which we're talking about today. We have the right to access meeting minutes. How many of you review meeting minutes for any of the public bodies here? Good. You too, Mr. Paul? Okay. And then we also have the right to record meetings. And I think that's something that's very important, because a lot of times, if you've ever been to a legislative session, if you've ever been to any of these public body meetings, sometimes it's real intimidating. And if you're at like a bigger meeting, right, you're going through metal detectors, you're going through security, so people often feel like, oh, I probably shouldn't have my phone out here. Oh, I probably shouldn't record. But you actually have the right to, as long as you do it in a non-disruptive manner, right? A lot of times, like for example, if you go to the state legislature, there's areas you can't stand, and they have those marked off, and the security guards will tell you, okay, you can't stand right there. But other than that, you definitely have the right to record both audio and video, as long as it's not disruptive. So who can tell me what a notice for a public meeting is and what needs to go in it? Anybody know? Without looking at the throne?
You gotta be posted where the place at, where the site you gonna be, gotta be posted on the outside.
It has to be posted at the site. What else?
And 3 days notice, that's what you said.
Does it have to be on the outside though?
You gotta be somewhere visible.
It has to be somewhere visible. And the reason why I wanted to point out, you specifically said the outside, right? But if you go to the state legislature and you're going to a specific committee hearing, that notice is not taped to the outside of that building. It's outside the room that particular committee hearing is going to be in. So it does have to be placed outside in a visible area where people can get to it. It needs to be posted at least 24 hours in advance. Now, in today's world, most of the time you have access to it a little before that, right? Everybody has their websites, they upload them there. But sometimes, especially when they call special sessions, when it's an emergency hearing, if it's something that pops up, they still have to let you know within 24 hours. In that notice, they have to include the agenda. They also have to provide the date, time, and location of where it is. I have a question. Has anybody seen a Lake Charles City Council notice? The meeting notices before?
Don't they go in the paper sometimes?
Yeah.
Or always?
So Lake Charles City, I was just saying, our city council notices are always
Yes.
in the paper. From what I understand, and somebody can fact check me on this if there's anybody watching on the live, we were told by a city councilman that the only place that Lake Charles City Council is legally obligated to post their notices because of the city's ordinances is the paper. So just be aware of that. And I've seen sometimes where like the notice will go up on the website and it'll go late, like literally right before the meeting. But it's always in the paper at least 24 hours in advance. So it'll be mine.
What's the penalty for not doing that when they don't?
That is good. We're gonna talk about that on the next slide. But I like that question though. I like that question. Say it again. You have to file proper complaint. And so emergency meetings, I do want to say that emergency meetings can be allowed, but they have to have a legal justification for the urgency, right? So for example, when they're making decisions and we have these hurricanes on the way and those kinds of meetings, if they have to move fast, they have to move fast, right? Who knows what an executive session is?
It's like committees go into a separate,
When they do legal stuff, when they're talking to their lawyers.
So those are the meetings we are not allowed to attend. Those are behind closed doors, and they're in those meetings typically for very few reasons. Litigation, so when they're talking to the lawyers, when there's that kind of stuff. If it's a personnel matter, right? Let's say somebody has to take a leave and they have to inform everybody, things like that that they have to keep kind of restrained. Security issues. If there's a particular issue that, you know, they've got threats about it, things like that, they can be allowed to meet behind closed doors. And then contract negotiations in some instances as well. But any votes, usually there are some exceptions, but any voting actually has to occur in the open session in front of the public. Now, does an executive session mean completely private? Are we not privy to what happens in there at all? Does anybody know? Anybody got a guess?
I'm gonna say yes. I feel like I tried to find the notes after the fact and I could not find them, but
It depends on the body. Kind of a trick question. But usually, no, you can't find the notes, but there are things that are how can I say, relayed to the public, usually through statements and PR. Yeah. I also wanted, there's a little side note here at the bottom. It says two-way communication between members discussing public business may qualify as a meeting. Does anybody know what I mean by that?
Yes.
So let's say I'm the president of Fab Parish Police Jury, right? And I have something that I want to talk to you about, and you're a member of that police jury. If it is something that affects everybody else, even if it's direct communication between you and I, it still may count as a meeting. Also, if you have a public body and you have multiple members there, they have a minimum number of people that have to be present. At that point, once they cross that, then it becomes a public meeting. They have to let people know, right? So they can't just say, oh, let's go to lunch, and then they all show up. That's a public meeting at that point.
once you have a quorum,
Yep.
What about a walking quorum?
Well, no, not even once you have a quorum. That was who said that? I mean, good job. We're going to talk about quorums in a minute, but you can have people. You cannot have a quorum, but still have enough people for it to be justified as a public meeting. Depends on the body, though. So that's also one of those kind of. There are some little nuances and all this stuff that you really have to dig into sometimes. So, to the question, what happens when they don't do this? When they don't follow these rules? So the possible consequences include if they make a decision and it wasn't done under the proper processes, that decision can be voided. Number one. Number two, court challenges. You go to the AG, you file a complaint, it goes into litigation, those kind of things. They can get fined, they can get injunctions, and people have been removed from public bodies for those kinds of things before. And that's why we encourage people's presence and documentation. Because the thing is, if we don't call it out, if we're not there when these things happen, and even if we are there, if we don't call it out and we don't have record of it, that's why that recording is important. Because let's be honest, if somebody has ill intentions and they call a meeting or a decision is made with ill intentions and they can get away with it, they're going to get away with it, right? That's what they did it for. So it's up to us to be there and enforce those things and make sure that it happens. Well, what happened there? Okay, so now we're going to talk about Robert's Rules a little bit. So one of you that raised your hand, give me an overview of what Robert's Rules are.
It's essentially just the order in which people are allowed to speak, how the voting works, how the discussion is going to be organized, right?
For the most part.
Yeah.
The
But the
parliamentary
specifics-
procedure
Yeah.
basically is how you conduct meetings.
Correct. So Robert's Rules of Order, which is we usually just say Robert's Rules, right? Yes, sir, Mr. Paul.
It really was created for corporate America. Your government just implemented it so it can run a meeting.
You sure?
Yeah.
It was invented for corporate America? You
They
sure?
created it, right.
Nah, it was invented for the military.
The government started after that, they started implementing to run the meeting.
It was invented by a former military officer named Henry Roberts. That's where we get the Roberts Rules. And so they were having these meetings and they're doing different things and he couldn't control, when people are talking about something they care about and emotions are high, everybody starts hollering and cutting people off and right? And so he was like, we can't conduct business like this. I can't do this. And so he developed this definitive guide for parliamentary procedure that made sure that meetings are orderly, fair, and efficient too. Because again, just like emotions get high and people start raising their voices, when everybody's got a lot to say about something, what do we end up wasting? Time, right? It keeps us from having 5-hour meetings where nothing gets accomplished. And so then it became pretty much standard. It was 176 pages that people carried around in their pocket, and it became the thing for everything at that point. It was non-legislative, anything that was. How many of you have seen Robert's Rules used in your church body meetings? Right. So almost any body of anything, people use these rules, and so. The good news is you don't have to memorize those 176 pages. You don't have to carry it in your pocket because nobody does. But it pretty much shows you just how the meeting is supposed to go. And so your typical meeting structure is a call to order, a roll call, approval of minutes from the previous meetings, reports. So the reports are usually the part of the meeting other than public comments that takes up the most time, depending on the body that we're talking about, right? If they have subcommittees, if they have people that are presenting data, those kinds of things, that all goes under the reports. Then you have old business, where they talk about things that might have been on the old agenda. They have new business, things that need to be talked about next time, your public comment time, and then an adjournment. So who can demonstrate to me a proper Robert's Rules call to order?
This meeting will come to order.
You're the president.
Do you? There you go, Mr. Paul. That's what I was looking for. Can anybody just call a meeting to order? No, it has to be who? The leader of that body. In a lot of instances, it's the president, or it could be the chairman, or so on and so forth. But yes, who keeps the minutes? Secretary. Also, sometimes that depends on the body, right?
Scribe.
Yeah. And so, what happens during a public comment section? It's kind of what we're here for, right? What do we do then?
You have to fill out a sheet, at least at the police jury meeting, and you have to turn it into a certain person who's has a name, I can't remember.
So if you turn to the back page of your workshop booklet, I have some sample comment card pictures there if you've never been to a public hearing, or even if you have. And so these, I kind of got them from a couple of different places. One is just a regular board or committee card from the state legislature. I think it's the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, so related to DOE there. And so typically, if you look at all of them, the one thing that they have in common, you have to tell your name, you have to tell where you're from or who you're representing, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then what agenda item, right, which one of those things in the flow you're actually there to talk about, and then you actually give your comments. Now, some things, like if you look down at the second one, that is actually a house card, so in that one, they have little spots where you have to put if the bill number that you're talking about instead of the actual agenda item number. And then you put your district, because the legislator for your district, usually they get those cards, they get a copy of those cards. And then also it's like your address, your phone number, and all that good stuff. You don't have to fill all that out, but it's always good because sometimes they contact you about your comments. But all that goes into the record when you fill those out. And the one at the bottom is, it's actually New Orleans City Council, but it looks pretty similar to most city council. That I could not find a picture of ours, which is really funny. So next time I go, I'm just going to try to grab an extra one and we'll keep it on hand. I used to testify at the state legislature so much that I just kept a stack of red cards. And oh, look, great! That's so for city council. That's awesome. I used to go to the legislature so much, which I probably will this year too. So at the legislature, you have red cards. That means you're in, there's green cards and red cards, an affirmation, or you're opposed to it, so it's an opposition card. And then they also have white cards. Has anybody ever been, do you know what the white card is?
You don't want to
Anybody want to guess?
You don't want to speak, you just either bud or something.
Not quite. You're on the right track though. Because you can fill out a card and there's a little box on there that says, I don't want to speak, I just want my comment. Right.
You can give your time to another speaker.
Or you can give your time to someone else. But that's not what a white card is for either. Nobody has wild guess. Nobody. If you are a government employee, you cannot go on the record and give the same kind of comments as a civilian can in those types of deliberations and in those committees. And so they have a white card that designates them as a government employee, and they can give notes, they can give feedback, but they can't be in affirmation or opposition of either because they are employed by the. Isn't that interesting?
That's civil service, right?
Yeah, because they're civil service. So why are those cards? Why do it? What's the point? Other than letting people know what you think about something, what is the point?
That's your representative now, like record.
Yep. Record. What else? Because why can't I just make a Facebook post and say, I don't want this in my neighborhood and they need to listen to us because we vote for them and my tax dollars pay their salary? Why doesn't that count? Why is this not the same thing?
Now you gotta put it in the week.
It's not part of the official dialogue.
Yeah,
It's not part of the official dialogue.
It could be fake.
You gotta have part of
It could be fake, right? Especially nowadays, we got AI, we got spam and spoof pages and all this other stuff, right? And then also, do they have to go look at your Facebook page?
No.
No, but they have to look at these. They gotta look at this. So you can say, this is like Charles, right? A lot of us, you see your city councilman when you go to Walmart, you might see him at church. So you can say, I've been telling y'all all the time that, and it doesn't matter unless these are there, right? And so they have to review them, especially for things like zoning. Can anybody tell me why?
Public comment, I mean, it's,
Why is it more important for specific things?
I guess if you have a public comment about a zoning issue, it might impact you in your community.
Usually 'cause you
in a
live there.
real way, yeah.
Exactly. Those things are a little different because usually you live there. Your taxes go directly to that issue, whatever the case might be. So they can influence outcomes. We've seen just recently how people making comment and so forth. What happened? It was about a month and a half ago now. What happened with the permits over there? Everybody flooded. They said no. They said no to those pipeline permits, right? They said we're not going to consider that. Why did they do? Do you think they would have did that if all those people wouldn't have been calling and doing all that those weeks leading up to that?
They just went on with the program.
They would have went along with the program because again, unfortunately, our elected officials have very tough jobs, and they have to listen to a whole lot, and they have to read a whole lot, and sometimes they maybe miss a detail, or they don't read at all, or they sit there with their feet up and play on their phone while people are in committee rooms deliberating on things. It happens. have people there and you're all saying the same thing, we don't want this here, we don't want this here, we don't want this here, they're more likely to say, okay, maybe I need to pay attention to this issue. Or sometimes it just gives you a little more time. Maybe we need to research this more. Maybe we need to go back and look at these processes. So all those things are very important.
Another reason why written comments matter, especially in like environmental work, is these state agencies have to take these comments and then they rule on a permit. And if they don't really consider the comment to litigate against their agency, you have to have told them up front that y'all are going to mess up a bunch of stuff. And if you didn't tell them, then the litigation can't happen because nobody made a comment. So that's why it's important on that
Like I
front.
said, y'all were okay with it.
Yeah,
Then nobody said anything. So this is beyond us. Yes, sir.
Well, share another incident. I went to a meeting, it was at the house, we called it exactly what the house was, called with their pants down. They didn't even have an agenda set out there. So I wanted to say, where's your agenda? They looking at, nobody's in there, normally nobody goes, that's why we got to attend these all
That's
these
right.
meetings and
Yeah.
all these years.
That goes back to what we said.
Yeah. And they-
Our presence is important.
And look what they're gonna say, anybody in the house object? They always say that to cover their behind.
Right. And so what did you just say? You were there and you called it out. What do you think would have happened at that meeting if you weren't there and you didn't call it out?
I'm gonna tell you now, another time I called with the parish, about this vote, I'm sure they do a lot of illegal stuff, you don't call them on.
Right.
I was pissed.
And let me tell you something, and this is something I want to stress. Sometimes they don't even know it's illegal.
Yeah, they don't, they ignorant too.
Some-
Yeah,
You said it, not me, Mr. Paul. But no, really.
they ignorant.
Sometimes they don't.
That ain't that crazy.
You ever get picked to do something at work, and they told you to do it, right? And then you get in there and you're like, I don't even know. Well, sometimes being elected is like that. I know that sounds crazy. People choose to run for office, right? People choose to run
They
for office.
aren't just regular people,
Yeah.
especially at your local level. These aren't necessarily like geniuses here.
I got something else to say. I went to another meeting, this is at the police jury. I called them. They moved the polling box. The only way they can move a polling box, unless it's on a private property, and they decide they can't,
And they still have to give you what?
they gotta give notice. They gotta
Notice.
make the people aware. I called them.
Right.
And all of them was in it. The Terrorist Bureau, the city, the parish, then what else come out? The president at that time, he got scared, his eyes got big, he told on himself. He done moved out the district.
Uh-oh.
I caught a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, you can't do that when you sit in the seat. You gotta stay in your district.
He got scared, I guess he told on himself, doing that same thing.
But she made an excellent point.
Like when they say,
Everybody that's elected, they're everyday regular people. They're now when you start talking about Congress, right? That's when we start talking about career politicians, as we call it. People that have been doing it for a long time. People that sometimes have a background in law, sometimes have a background in policy, so they're more well versed in these things. But especially when we talk about city council, police jury, you know, most of it, you can walk into a police jury meeting and your dentist
Yeah.
can be sitting on it, right?
Yeah.
And I trust you with my teeth, but I don't necessarily trust you with my taxes, buddy. I gotta make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. So that's just what it is. Everything is not like some nefarious thing, but ultimately at the end of the day, they don't always know what they're doing either, and that's why it's important for us to be aware and to ask questions, because sometimes when we ask questions, it makes them go back and ask questions, right? So what's the difference between oral comments and written comments?
One's on paper,
One on
one's.
paper,
Well, yeah, but besides that,
They usually limit how much time you can speak on oral comments, and written comments you can give them a dissertation. So
exactly. So I'll say two things. Yes, written comments. I can send 50 pages in, and my 50 pages is gonna go on the record, right? You go to a meeting and you give oral comments, usually depending on the meeting. And I will say that if it's a meeting and there aren't a lot of people there, and you're the only person that has a comment card, sometimes they will let you talk all day, and you can ask all the questions you want, and it's, you know. But if there's a lot of people, or if it's a highly contested issue, they will limit your time. I've seen, usually it's 3 minutes, but I've seen 5, I've seen 7, I've seen, actually this past special session, we went in for, not SB3, the changing the juveniles to adults. And there were several hearings on that one. And one of them, there were so many people there, they limited us to a minute.
Wow.
And then they said, if you're gonna say the same thing that somebody else is saying, you can just not. And I was like, well, I'll be dang. I still got it. But it happens. But I will say, I always tell everybody to do both if you can. Right? Send in your written comments so you can say everything you want to say. But I think oral, like actually going and giving public testimony, does two things. One, I call it the steroids of public comments because it makes them feel differently when they have to look at a human, right? It's not a piece of paper. It's not something on the screen. That is a living, breathing person. That's somebody that's crying, or you see their faces frowned up, or they go in there. Now, the crying and the frowning up and the overexcitement sometimes can work against you, because that happens. But it does usually add a human element that makes people reconsider things that they may not have reconsidered when you're there. Now, the key to that is using targeted emotion and being specific, right? Because what happens when you're emotional about something and you really care about it, what kind of happens sometimes when you start talking?
Get everything you say.
Get choked up.
You get choked up. You forget what you were supposed to say, and that one, you get in the weeds. You will go off on a tangent that has nothing to do with what you're supposed to talk about, and then you're like, oh, my time always up, and I didn't say what I was supposed to say, so let me try and hurry up and wrap this up, and then it just turns into a mess, right? And so then, do you really get your point across? No. How do we not have that happen?
Be prepared, practice, stay calm.
Be prepared. That's the biggest key, being prepared. So let's go back to written comments specifically for a second. We're going to talk about how to be prepared for those. There's kind of like a little template. There's 4 things that you need to stay on top of. And that gives you kind of like the structure of what you're supposed to write. So 1, you need to identify yourself. Name, address, and then it's always best to say why you care about that thing when you identify yourself, right? I'm a parent of a child that goes to school in this district. I'm a business owner that's going to be affected by the decision you're making. So on and so forth. It can literally just be, I'm a taxpayer and I'm worried about my money, right? But whatever it is, give some tie to why your opinion on this issue matters. 2, state your position clearly. I oppose, or I support. Or an ask, right? Or I just want you guys to spend a little more time looking at this, right? So that's the other thing. We're going to go back to ask in a second, but it's always important to say it up front first. After you do that, then you want to provide your specific reasons why you support, oppose, or you want more time, or whatever it might be, right? Use facts. Facts are always best, especially money facts. It sucks that that's the thing they respond to the most a lot of times. But if you have information on how much it's going to cost people or how much it's going to take out of the community or whatever the case might be, always include it. Local impact, right? If them taking $50,000 out of a school district is going to cut a program and you know kids in that program and you know how many kids there are and you have information on what that program does for those kids, put that in there, right? Lived experience. You guys did this in our district and this is what happened to us. And this is how it hurt us, so don't do it to these other people, right? Things of that nature. And then again, you want to go back to your direct acts. Again, I implore you, don't issue this permit for blah, 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 right? Or please give extra budgetary consideration to blah, 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 blah. You know, whatever you're talking about. Go back to your actual ask. So we're going to take about, do like 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. And there's an example one here. So this one would have been like a land use, if you want to take a second and read that. But I'm going to give you, let's see, what topic we going to do? I don't want to do school, anything with schools. We got enough of that in real life right now. We're going to build a new library. So tell me why you would support or oppose this library. Write a public comment for that. Give you 3 minutes. And then we'll share.
Do we get that for the next
That'll help you think for sure.
Yeah, we already got a library system.
Mr. Paul, we imagining right now. You show imagination.
Well, hey, I'm just saying opposed.
Well, look, since you want to use, you live by me, neighbor. We in the same area. So let's say for you, they talking about building a library branch in Carshot. Why would you support or oppose it?
I wanted one where they did something else right across from Kennedy. Yeah.
Mr. Paul, bring it down. Oh, man.
Oh, my bad.
I'm gonna let you share it in a minute, but write it down. Come on, man. Mr. Paul, you got trouble in school, huh? I couldn't have been your teacher.
Just at all.
Paul, get out of here.
Not agree with the teacher. So on certain things, not able. Not good and no too much.
Your report card always says talks a lot on it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Mm. But guess what? Mine too. It's all right. I'm gonna tell you something. I don't know if I should say this. I'm looking at this card because I feel bad. That's why I said it. I've never been to a Sulphur City Council meeting, and I never really thought about the fact that I've never been. So I looked at this card. Now I'm gonna go.
I'll tell you another thing, a lot of people use point to order in the meeting, they use it the wrong way. Y'all done seen, I ain't gonna call them names, y'all know what I'm talking, they had a habit of doing. They would say point to order, you're supposed to wait till the president establishes order, then he calls you to talk.
They say what, Mr. Paul?
Point to order,
It ain't point to order. It's point of order.
well, whichever. But, the president's supposed to take control of the meeting, get it under control, then they go back to him. I seen them say that word, they jump out and start running their mouth.
You're right.
Hey, I had that hammer, I put that hammer on.
Oh,
They
not,
don't remember
not the
that.
hammer. He said he can put it in.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple more seconds.
Put another scenario, in case they pass something or order something that people.
Mr. Paul, you come and teach my workshop? What you doing?
I don't know everything like you. and they-
Oh, Lord, I
You
ain't saying
gotta
it.
print out too. Yeah, they got a lot of procedures, one like, if you wanna overturn something, they get a lot of pressure, they made a bad call. It gotta be somebody on the affirmative side to bring it back up. The losing side can't bring it up. I done seen that out in the city council, took so much heat, then it come back and undo it.
Oh, it's playing on my feet.
Was outside.
All right, who wants to share their written comment with us on this library that we're gonna build? Y'all don't want to share, I'm gonna call on somebody, I'm gonna do y'all like this.
Hello, my name is Sarah Swaney. I live at 422 Burnett Street. As a resident of Lake Charles, I support building a new library. Libraries add value to communities by providing resources to all residents, young and old, providing meeting spaces and supporting literacy. I ask you to please support this resolution to add another library to our system. Thank you.
That was
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you.
Had a
And
sticker for
that was,
it.
I would have never, if I was writing that, I would have never thought to mention meeting rooms, right? And so how many people, if they were on this public body and they're thinking, oh, we need to buy more books, we got 4 branches already. That's a meeting space in that area, right? That could have brought that to their mind and then changed it. Right. Anybody else want to share this? Was anybody in opposition to the library?
Yeah, books are bad.
I need to know which one of y'all stay away from if you're in opposition to the library. Go ahead, James.
I wrote mine about not about a new library, but about a library that closes early. It closes at 5 p.m.
Oh, I like that.
My name is James. I have 3 children. We enjoy using the library, but it closes too soon, which doesn't allow enough time to go check out books on a regular occasion. We would be better served if the library opened later and stayed open at times when we're available. Please consider changing the hours so more people can enjoy it in the evening.
That was a good one.
Not what you asked for.
It was not, you did not follow directions, but it was great. If that was the thing on the issue, I was like, oh, okay. Mr. Paul, what you got back there? You was doing all that talking.
Shut up, bro.
He said, I'm done. Okay, good job. Look, then your phone ringing, just disruptive. All right. So let's talk about strong oral comments. Do you think the template's much different? No. Not really, no. You state your name, what part of the community you are, you're here to oppose or support, you explain, you give your reasons, and you make your ask. Why is making oral, if it's the same, why is it so much harder to do than it is to write?
Get nervous.
Yeah. People are just out there.
Public speaking is hard. It's hard. And then think about it. If you're not somebody that's used to being, besides just having all the eyes on you, what if I don't dress like everybody else in their dresses, right? And what if I talk differently than the people in their talk? Am I gonna really want to do that? Not really. And so I encourage people to make public comments as much as possible, but I also understand why people don't. And especially in today's world, right? We just talked about people recording everything. And we want to record public meetings, but how many of you have seen video from some city somewhere of somebody giving public comments at city council or whatever the case might be, and it goes viral because it's not what's supposed to be happening in the meeting chambers, right? It happens all the time. Y'all know one of my favorite people was the rest his soul now, the guy in Flint, Eric Mays. You know what I'm talking about? Mr. Paul said his favorite phrase earlier: "Point of order." They would be talking, they would start going, "Point of order," and they would tell him, "You don't have the floor. I don't care if I don't have the floor." And he would just go off all the time, and it was hilarious, like total just like disregard for Robert's rules. But it was the funniest thing. But he was a very effective councilman. He got voted for over and over because he was not afraid to speak up for people. And that's the thing that I loved about him the most, and that's the thing that we need to remember. It doesn't matter if you have a 5th grade education, a 7th grade education, if you got a PhD, you have the same right to get up there just like everybody else and say what you feel about whatever it is. And there's some things you can do to kind of ease that intimidation and ease that nervousness and get around the way you may feel when you go in there. So one, somebody said earlier, practice. If you know that they're going to close, I keep saying I don't want to talk about schools, but if you know they're going to close a school in your neighborhood, and you got the notice, and you know there's a meeting, and it's a week from now, what should you be doing until that week, during the course of that week?
Yeah, not the public, or your community, or neighborhood.
Well, but practice it. Figure out what you want to say ahead of time, and then say it over and over to whoever will listen. Say it in the mirror, say it to your phone camera and watch it back. Just don't let it die like mine just did. But just say it over and over. Also, what else can you do?
Read it off of a card.
Take a card with you. And for a lot of people that works best. Take a card with you, especially if you know it's something that everybody's going to be there. You're going to be limited to that 3 minutes or that 60 seconds. Time yourself. And then write what fits in that time, in that template, and just do it over and over. Number 2, try to speak slower than you normally do. Because that way, then if you get nervous, and you start talking faster because you're nervous, if you start off slower, people have a better chance of understanding you, right? Also, even if you do have a car, make sure that you look up occasionally, make eye contact with somebody. And also, you don't actually have to make eye contact with people. I look at people's hairlines all the time. Probably not the best place to look, but it makes them think I'm looking at their face, right? And it works. It gets my message across. Also, watch the time, especially if you're limited. Because what happens is, usually there's somebody with a little paper like this. Or if you in a district or you live somewhere they got money, they got a little timer. They gonna have a timer and the timer gonna count you down. But what happens when that time runs out and you keep talking, then they start treating you like you're unruly sometimes. And then you really get nervous and then it's right. So make sure you're paying attention to the time. And if they don't have, because sometimes you go to these meetings and they don't have people that watch the time. So watch it for yourself just to avoid any issues. But the biggest thing is the more you go and the more you do it, the easier it gets and the better you get at it. Tell y'all a story. First time I gave public comment in front of I'm not gonna say the first time I gave public comment ever because I grew up in the church, right? And I grew up in one of them churches that if you was in the church, you was gonna do something at church on Sunday, they made you get up and say something. So I was kind of used to talking in front of people, but the first time that I actually testified in front of a public body, I was not prepared to do so. I went to support some other people that were testifying, and somebody came and sat next to me and said, "We turned in a car for you too."
No.
And I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, we turned in a car for you too. You gonna speak, right? You got the best lived experience in this, and and my heart's like, I couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't hear nothing else that was being said that moment. And I had my phone. Let me tell you, that saved my behind. Because the whole rest of the time everybody else was talking, I couldn't hear anything. I started doing this in my notes. And I wrote what I wanted to say. And I was sitting there the rest of the time. Yeah. And then when I got up there and I sat down, first of all, those microphones, they pick up everything. So I pulled my chair back and you can hear that on the mic. And I sat, I scooped my chair up and you can hear that and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And so I looked at my phone and I started off like this. And then as I started reading what I was talking about, so just to let you guys know, I was testifying, it was the Public Service Commission, and I was talking about phone call rates for people that were incarcerated. I grew up with an incarcerated parent. So I could immediately talk about how it was expensive. And so that limited how much I could communicate with my parent. And these things, and as I was reading it, I started remembering how it felt. Like really how it felt. And then all of a sudden, I started looking at them. And then when I was looking, and I was like, oh, he's not paying attention to me. I'm about to stare at him because he's not listening. And the next thing I knew, I was like, and then when I finished and everybody was like, maybe that wasn't so bad. And so somebody was like, are you going to do this again? And I was like, no. And here I am. So, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So just make sure, again, you prepare yourselves. There's tons of examples. If you look in your workbook, there's some templates. There's some for you to write some practice spaces in there. There's a 60-second, a really short one, like generic one, that if you ever want to use it, you can just fill in the blanks. Right? There's one for if you're representing a group. Because sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes you can be in moms for libraries, if we're talking about a library, and everybody wants to say something, but we know we all can't go up there and speak. So you speak on behalf of all of us, right? And so that changes what you say a little bit when you're not just representing yourself, right? So there's some templates for that kind of stuff in there. And then there's also an advocacy planning sheet, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, what about your job? I think this is really important in this day and age because we have seen, especially lately, a rash of people, I speak out about something or the way I feel, and even though we have First Amendment rights and things of that nature, sometimes somebody else that don't agree with you gonna go knocking on HR's door or, you know, keyboard Karen. I saw your employee, right? And keyboard Karen got a little too excited. Huh? And then you lose your job. And
Retaliation, that's illegal.
not always.
Not always, yeah, if it's against their policy.
And that's the thing. Anytime that you are preparing to speak in a public place, at all, even if it's not in front of a public body, please be aware of your employer's policies. And I know we think, oh, my Facebook is private. Nobody can see that. Oh, the group chat, that's my friend. It ain't going nowhere. Anytime, especially if it's in anytime, because again, now we got cameras and microphones everywhere. Think about what you are saying, and if you know it goes against any policy, if there is any, and you are scared, especially if you're scared about losing your job, if you work in one of those environments, just don't say it. Just don't say it. But make sure you know if they have a social media policy, if they have political activity rules, if there are public speaking guidelines, or sometimes you work for an entity that says you have the right, you can say what you want to say. However, these issues, because we work in these issues, you can't talk about them. Or, and this kind of goes to the second point, your opinions are yours and yours alone. Do not speak on behalf of this company with regards to this matter, right? Some companies have those policies, so please make sure that you're aware of those. And again, if you are a public employee, right? If you work for the city, if you work for a law enforcement agency, if you work for any of those kinds of things, DCFS, a school, even if you don't work for the school board, you're not on the board, even if you work in a school, I have a dear friend of mine that lived in Texas that she didn't say anything. She did something, but she didn't say it. She owned a fitness studio. And it was a particularly niche brand of fitness workout, and a mom went there, had a great time, but then decided to go back and tell the school, this is not something we want around our children. And so she had to make the decision, do I want my job or do I close my studio? And so she closed her studio. So, you know, just be mindful of those policies and how they can get you in those little situations. But if you are going to do it, no matter what happens in this category, please make sure to separate yourself from your job. Don't make public comments in your work uniform. Oh my gosh. I cannot tell you how many times we sit in City Hall, and I get it, right? Because the meeting started at what time? 5 o'clock. You done rush to get there because you want to make sure they know how you feel about this, but take it off, cover it up, do something. Because anything that you say, if it goes against any of those policies, and sometimes even if it doesn't, it can give them a loophole or a window or a door to dismiss you or to punish you or whatever the case might be. And I hate saying that. I don't think anybody should get punished for their opinion, whether I agree with it or not. Don't use company resources. If you're going to send an email, don't do it from your work email. Don't even do it on their Wi-Fi. Go home. Unless you work over here with us, because I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Thank you, James.
Make all my opposition job.
And then also, yeah, the Wi-Fi locks, because I can say crazy stuff over here. You can't get stuff on. That's why. And also understand the whistleblower policies, right? Sometimes there are protections, especially if you're reporting illegal activity. If you work for a company and you know there's HIPAA violations going on, and so you go to this public hearing where they're talking about this particular issue, your job can't do anything to you because you're reporting something that needs to be reported, right? But we know that sometimes you blow a whistle and there's protections, but the protections don't come into place until after they've already fired you. So be mindful of that and make sure that you document everything, and always consult an attorney. Always consult an attorney. You know, attorneys get a bad rep. People don't like attorneys. I mean, sometimes for good reasons. But it's always good to have a friend or two that knows a little bit that you can call if you find yourself in those situations. we gonna turn to a couple of our activities in here before I let y'all go, and then we'll talk about this. Turn to the advocacy planning worksheet. Looks like this. It's right in the middle. So, one thing that we see happen all the time is that people will find out about a hot button issue at 9 o'clock in the morning from a Facebook post, and the meeting is that evening at 5, and so you're not prepared, and you don't have a plan, and everybody shows up, and everybody is upset, and then it does what? It just goes off the rails. It's all kinds of stuff. So that's why it was important that we talk about those notices. Because if we know where to look for these things and where to watch these things, we can do what? We can prepare early. And so that's what this advocacy planning worksheet is meant to help you do. If you look at it, step 1, you identify the issue. Which usually, if you're looking at this, you already know what you're mad about, right? You know what issue concerns you the most. So then you need to sit there and think about why. If you had to explain to someone, because you know why, right? You know why you feel how you feel. But if you had to explain it to somebody, tell them how or why it matters to you personally. She will write that there. And then your next step is to think, who else is affected? If I'm mad about it, surely somebody else is. Not always. But surely somebody else is mad about it. And then think about why. And so then the next thing would be to understand which body is actually in control of that decision. Because does it do you any good to go to city council and complain about something the school board did? No. Right? And so a lot of times we find ourselves in these situations where people are giving public comment, especially during open comments, right? People start talking about stuff and it's not on the agenda. This not even the, we ain't got nothing to do with that, ma'am. You just wasted 12 minutes of everybody's time, you know? So make sure that you understand which body has the authority over that particular issue. And then, again, refer to the notice. When is the next meeting? What if it's something that's bothering you that's not on an agenda? How do you go about addressing that?
What if city council has an agenda meeting and at the end the public can talk about whatever they want?
That's that open comment period that I'm talking about. Almost everybody has some time for that. Like our city council, they do it at the agenda meetings, but sometimes if you go to different boards and stuff, it's just, they just have it on their public comment. Any open comment, and you go and you say whatever, you still fill out your card, and then you write a little note about what it is you're gonna talk about, and you get up there and you give your notes. Should you be as prepared for that as you are for the things that are already on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna tell y'all something, and I don't know, you know, I know this is gonna be on the interwebs. So hopefully the person that I'm talking about, if they realize I'm talking about them, hopefully that they're okay with me telling this. A few weeks ago, a couple months ago actually, there was a gentleman at a city council meeting, and he got up during open comments, and he wanted to talk about traffic. And he had a slideshow with pictures, aerial pictures of the intersection that he was talking about. And he had pictures of similar intersections near similar businesses that showed why this intersection deserved a crosswalk, just like those people had a crosswalk, even though it wasn't there and it was endangering the people that had to walk across the street in this area. And everybody, you could see, because other people had gotten up and talked about it, but you could see everybody all of a sudden going, oh, well, yeah, because they could see it, right? So obviously we don't always have the time to put together a slideshow. We definitely don't always have, I mean, I got a James got a drone. Everybody don't have a drone, so you can't always have an aerial picture, right? But whatever you can do, if it's a blighted property in your neighborhood, it's one thing to get up and say, that house has been falling apart for months and nobody's doing anything about it. It's another thing to get up and say it and have pictures. And they see how it's falling apart, and they see how it looks in the rest of the neighborhood, and they see how it could be a hazard, right? Whole different, takes your testimony to a whole different level. So prepare as much as possible. Those kind of things help it out. Step 3, define your goal. What do you want? A lot of times people get up and they give public comments, and it just feels like they just rant. Which I like a good rant. I appreciate a good rant, but we're here to do business, and that doesn't always work in the elected officials, especially if you go and you rant a lot. if you've ever been to these public body meetings, you know who those people are, because everybody in the room always goes, here they come, right? So nobody wants to be that person, and you might have very valid points, but if you're always doing that, it kind of, takes a little steam out of your engine up there. So you want to make sure that you know what you actually want to accomplish, and you tell them that. And what you do, you want to stop a proposal, you want to change a proposal, you want to get approval. You just want to make somebody come see something, right? A gentleman from our neighborhood, Mr. Paul, was fussing about this alligator that people's pets was coming up missing, and there's this alligator, and nobody's doing anything about it, and they were like, okay, so what you want us to do about it? And he was like, well, I don't know. But somebody needs to do something. And so eventually, after maybe another 10 minutes of like back and forth, they were like, okay, we're gonna hire somebody to come and trap the gator, and and it was just really funny because when they asked him, what is it that you want? He had no. He literally stopped and went, I don't know. It's like, poor thing. Step 4, choose your strategy, right? I'm talking about public meetings, but does it always have to be done in a public meeting? When you care about something and it bothers you and you want something done about it, do you always have to use a public meeting as a vehicle for change? No. You can call your city councilman or your police or whoever, right? You can call your neighbors. Because you'd be surprised sometimes how much we can change things on our own without having to do all that if we just work together and we communicate with each other. My favorite thing is the word community. Because it's real. And when we use it, we can do amazing things. And then sometimes you have to tap into that community to get them to go to the public meetings too. If I'm the only person that ever has anything to say about a particular issue, do you think it's really going to be treated with any kind of urgency? No. But if we all go, and we're all upset about it, and we all have all these stories about how this impacts us and affects us, what usually happens? Something. Yeah. Right.
One thing about, besides the public meetings, a lot of these public meetings are decided before the meeting. And so it's important to contact whoever, if it's police jury or legislators or whatever, and have a conversation, and have your neighbors have a conversation and let them feel the pressure, because public pressure works if it's leveraged effectively.
The only bullying that I support is bullying of elected officials. No, but really though, that sounds funny, but it makes perfect sense. When you talk to them, when you flood their lines with calls and their email, I can't get any more emails because all these people in my district are emailing me about this particular issue. They have to pay attention, and if they don't, what you supposed to do? Get them out of there. That's what we have to do. But if you're not voicing your complaints to them, if you're not doing anything, does that work the same way usually? No. Right? And then the rest of the steps on the advocacy planning sheet are just kind of things that for you personally, right? So what stops you from giving public comments? Is it the nervousness? Is it the time limits? So once you figure out what it is, then you can prepare a plan to get around that. Then you can also plan for numbers, right? We just said the more people, the better. So then you figure out how to get people to go with you, right? Sometimes it's a matter of, well, we all can't go. The 5 of us can. We're going to go to this meeting. We're going to talk to them. And in the next meeting, y'all go. Organizing. But it's hard to organize. We don't talk to people, right? And sometimes we can tap into somebody that's already there. There's lots of community organizations for different causes and different things. Sometimes they have efforts with those things, but if you're not aware of that, then you can't support those efforts. A lot of times, there's one-click campaigns, right? They'll send you an email. If you just click here, we've already prepared a written statement for you. Put your name, your address, and it'll go there. So just paying attention to those things as well. And then the last thing I think that a lot of people overlook is following up, right? Send follow-up emails. If they say, we're going to have a hearing about this because we think it's a serious matter, you're right. And you walk out and you go, oh, okay, they're going to have a hearing. And then you never follow up, you think everybody's going to have that hearing? James, when I started working here,
October.
October. Didn't that man tell us we was gonna have a meeting in October?
Sure did.
We had our meeting yet?
No.
There you go. Just saying, right? But then you also go back and thank people. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for, because again, as easy as it is for us to get angry at our elected officials, they are just regular people. They are just doing a job that they were selected to do. And a lot of times it is a thankless job, whether they do a good job or a bad job. They don't get to hear it often. And then just make sure that you attend future meetings and stay connected with other people that are concerned in your area. So in the back page, there's a glossary, and there's some room for reflection on some of the things that we've talked about. There's some examples of successful group commenting. There's all kinds of good stuff there. But one thing I want to bring out is the last page that has a personal commitment. It says, one action I will take within the next 30 days. So I'm going to give y'all a second to think about it. And I want you to tell me one thing that you're going to do in the next 30 days. It could be attend a meeting. It could be submit a written comment. And then I got one for y'all that I'm going to suggest that you can do. So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about what action you're going to take in the next 30 days to be engaged. It's 7:15. My ADHD medication is wearing off, so I have to ask this question. How many different birds do you use on this show?
Birds? Yeah, just like,
Oh, it's nine. Or is it ducks? Are they all ducks?
They are, but they're like kind of made up ducks.
Oh, okay.
It's a
Okay.
band
That's
t-shirt.
real duck.
Some of them are real.
I was
One of them's the
curious.
band's name. Yeah, where's the Whipperfield? That's the band.
My brain is very. I was like, oh, first I know it was Georgia. I was like, oh, she's got a pelican. Yeah, in Louisiana. And they was like, she's got pelicans too. And I was like, wait, that's not pelicans. What is it?
Yeah.
How many of them are there? Oh yeah. Sorry.
They're not real birds. Well, they're real. They're with us. Yeah.
One day you wake up and you're just like, oh wow, look at that hawk. Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah.
You just
What
wake
kind
up
of
and you're
bird
like,
is that?
You're like,
obsessed
oh,
with
there's birds right there. Yeah. I like animal TikTok, and so I like watching all the people, all the like. I have specific parrots that I follow on TikTok, and they're very entertaining. There's also an otter now. It's a baby otter. Her name is Lola. She's great. She's adorable.
You seen the prairie dog? Oh, there's a prairie dog that has a name, and every time they call its name, it stands up.
Well, I gotta find it now.
Yeah. Don't worry, your phone here.
Yeah, it will. It will every time.
It's coming.
I was talking about movie gardens the other day, and I've been seeing zoo videos ever since. Couple more seconds. You suppose it? I want to hit his action. I'm looking. Does anybody want to share their action with us? What they're gonna do in the next 30 days?
I usually cover the police jury for our little group, but I usually just watch the videos online. So I'm gonna try to carve out the time to go because it's gotta be really different in person.
So this is probably not the best reason to tell people to go to public meetings. But if you like reality TV, public meetings are so much better.
but see, if you like reality TV, you gotta go to the city council meeting.
Yes, and I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, but I also
juries.
like order and the police jury actually use Robert's rules really properly.
It's so boring.
I'm a agree to disagree on that.
Compared to other bodies.
Yes, compared to other
I've
bodies.
seen
Yes, yes,
in
yes.
this town.
Yes. That I would, yes. I agree.
Relatively speaking.
But yeah, public meetings are so much better than reality TV. Like they're the most entertaining thing in the world. At some point, I'm pretty sure I'll end up getting kicked out of the Lake Charles City Council meeting because I've gotten a little too comfortable in there, and so like now people say something, I'm like, and I get the look.
You think you're watching TV?
Yeah.
But it's all, yeah, exactly. You never know what's going to happen. I watched a very spirited discussion about Hardy Board one day.
Yes, that was.
Yeah.
He was waving the Hardy Board. He had different types of it.
He
He was
was like,
waving it around.
he's like, I'm gonna wrap my building in
Okay,
vinyl.
there
And they were
was-
like, you can't do that.
There was
either.
Hardy Board, there was Hardy Plank, there was Hardy Brick, which first of all, I don't do construction, so I didn't know all these different things existed. And then like it was great because he brought them. Like he brought examples and he's just waving his plank board around. It was hilarious. It was great though, but it was good for his argument. He was prepared, right? He did everything we told him to do. But it was very entertaining to watch. And then, you know, there was the time we were there for almost 5 hours because we were talking about a sports complex. I was getting ready to make a DoorDash order. We was hungry. But yeah, it's very, also, if you're a nosy person, right? City council meetings are great because
Yeah, that's good mix.
this is good. Yeah, I mean, listen, whatever it takes to get you engaged, whatever it takes to get you in the room, I'm okay with it, right?
Good mix.
Anybody else want to share their action with us? Mr. Paul, what are you going to do within the next 30 days to be engaged?
Zone.
You going to the zone? Mr. Paul does go to all the zone. He's there a lot. He is.
I was attending all of them. I'm probably the longest citizen attending more meetings than any other. That's why I know what I know. By going to listen and sit down and look at it.
I like it. That's why I know what I know. He ain't lying. I like it. Anybody else? Any of you that currently go to public meetings gonna take somebody with you next time you do? That's my goal, cause I go to a lot of them, and my goal is to try to drag somebody with me.
That's cool. That's just like voting. Make y'all laugh about this. I had a guy doing some work, so I was gone early vote. So hey, why don't you come on with me? I'm going, no, I'm gonna wait till the time. I say, what you think I'm doing? It's time now.
Right, early bird is time to
Yeah.
vote. I know this, right?
In the booth.
Um,
When it's time, I say, but I'm gonna vote now, so what I'm saying. They got some, they crack you up, man.
So, hopefully you guys found this useful. I would like to follow up with as many people as possible and see if you actually did your action within the 30 days. And also, we are going to do some more of this. I'd like to do an in-depth kind of dig into each body and the rules of each body if people are interested in that. So, because that's a little scary. So that's important, right? We're talking about going to these meetings, but if you don't know much about that body, you know, it helps you out a little bit there. And then also, again, for those of you who may not know, legislative session starts in about 3.5 weeks. And so it's important to know how to track bills and figure out who wrote what bills and things of that nature. So we're going to do some stuff with that as well. So please, I guess now I'm talking more to the camera than anything, y'all. But please stay tuned, follow us, keep in touch so we can have you guys engaged in all the things. But again, thank y'all for coming out. Please eat some more of that food. Because me and James don't need to eat it all. And y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Got the cake.
I can't believe nobody's coming already.
Got the king cake.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mr. Paul, you want baby?
You wanna live peace. One thing about king cake, it ain't.
Okay.
Oh, they do baby. They do a necklace.
It ain't real sugar.
She's gonna be out.
Oh, wait, let that go on top. I don't know.
Apparently, I talked tomorrow
Can't choke on it.
at 11.
I mean, you
at
can.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
Online.
Challenge.
Like it's settled.
So we're Tyrese.
Y'all have that.
We
I
went
got
through that
cook.
meeting
I don't
too.
cook
They want to be
anything.
involved. And some people can agree on
Because
that.
you know what because they bust at me.
I don't know what cameras we
They bust at me when I cook. You can't lie. I just thought
We can.
Yeah.
We're trying to find.
I don't know.
But I don't think
wait to reach out, so wait for her to reach back out to start organizing them like.
No, we're organized. We already told the people last Saturday, 11 to 1, the 28th. I don't know if that's what we agreed upon, but that's.
Is everybody on our email?
Push
Well, that's what.
Yeah, I told them 11 to 2 or 3.
If you scan here, just sign in, I can
That's
add.
fine.
After about that.
And the reason why I'm saying that, because those workbooks,
Interview,
tomorrow,
like,
everybody's gonna get a copy.
They